This episode was sponsored by Sternglass and their new Naus Pro automatic watch. As a special feature with this release, early buyers can secure a golden Miyota 9015 movement, also known as Gilt version. Head to sternglass.com. That's STERNGLAS.com. Sternglass with one S.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. I am your host today, Kat Shoulders, and I am joined by Zach Kazan. Hey Zach, how are you?
Hey Kat, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I hear you just got back from Geneva.
I did. As we record, I'm like 2 days back, I think, from Geneva. I'm in that phase of getting back to like Eastern time, and it's hard to know exactly like what day or time it is. And the holiday weekend kind of throws a wrench into
just
that.
messed you up.
Yeah, everything's a little wacky. Right now. But yeah, I was in Geneva.
No shame at all for not unpacking, because I went to California like 3 weeks ago for an event we did with James. And I did not fully unpack my suitcase, and then today I'm off to New York, so I just like kind of halfway packed, is ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that I feel like I always have this happened to me on this trip. I always have like I pack too much, so I have like clean clothes left over that like I didn't use. I keep those like separate and save them for my next trip. That's like a little kind of like trick I've learned over the years. So I don't know. Hopefully that makes your life a little bit easier. My next trip to New York is already like I've already got one packing cube like ready to go for whenever.
That's amazing. Yeah. Packing cubes are the best.
Yep, they really are.
Well, cool. Well, before we jump into today's podcast, what are you wearing on your wrist?
I'm wearing the Fears Brunswick Aurora today.
I love that Fears. Really excited to see what Fears does the rest of the year. I kind of got a sneak peek at something that's coming soon, which I'm really excited about. And I hope to see them at Wind Up. I think they're going to be at Wind Up New York. They'll be in New York at least.
Yeah, I believe they're coming with Collective, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I ran into Nicholas in Geneva, and he he was obviously like very excited to be there, and I it's all a blur, but I believe we talked specifically about Wind Up. My understanding is they plan to be there. Apologies if I'm imagining that conversation, Nicholas, but
well, I love that watch.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's great. They did a really nice job with it. I love wearing it. Get a lot of compliments on it, which is always
you
nice.
Wear it a lot, I have to say. Yeah, I see a lot on your feed in your morning bagel runs.
Yeah. Yep. Indeed.
It's a good watch to wear. It's kind of like, it's odd. It's like not the watch I would pick for you, but somehow it really suits you and your personality. And I know you're getting into sort of these more intricate pieces, but it's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
It's really beautiful.
I really do enjoy it. It's a great piece. What are you wearing, Kat?
I'm wearing my Seiko Land Master GMT. I can't remember the official name. It's like SPB 411. The new reissue limited edition that Seiko loves to do, and Grand Seiko loves to do. I think I've talked about this watch. It's really great, really awesome. I plan to wear it to New York this week, just to have a GMT to wear.
Nice.
Along with a couple other pieces I just haven't decided on, so we'll figure that out.
The time difference between Nashville and New York is
1 hour.
1 hour. Okay, just wanted to double check. All right. An hour.
Any excuse to use the GMT.
I get it. I when I was in Switzerland, I only took one watch. I took my Tudor Black Bay, and that watch is a nice travel watch because it doesn't have a date. It's any watch without a date, I think, is like a pretty good travel watch because it's just like easier to more intuitive to set and reset. Also, it's pretty like robust and hard wearing, and like I don't worry about it. When I'm like throwing luggage onto a into overhead or whatever. But
I've traveled a lot, especially working in this industry, and over the years, like I still love a great GMT watch. It's still one of my favorite complications. However, I will say that like they're not really that useful. I think what's more useful to me, and I've seen this in a few watches that have like a jumping hour hand.
Yes.
And it's like a quick adjust, and like you just pull it out from the crown, like to step 1. and you can move that hour hand independently from the minutes and seconds. And I find that to be probably more useful than a GMT. It's just super easy. And I mean, unless you're a pilot or something, I don't know if you really need to know both times, at the exact same time. But, I'm just speaking for me either. So don't come at me or anything. But I just find that is like the better travel watch, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I think that local jumping hour without a GMT is kind of like, especially for domestic travel in the United States, kind of like
Hmm.
the ideal travel watch because
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, like you can do the addition or subtraction in your head, it's like
Yeah.
plus or minus 3 hours, for
Yeah.
the most part.
Not too bad.
And yeah, it's a great complication. I don't know why more brands don't employ that. I
Yeah.
mean, I do know it's because of the limited access to movements that feature it, but like
Yeah.
that would be a great. That's almost
I
something that
just
should
wanna
be
see
like
more of it.
standard. Like that
Yeah.
would be a great standard.
Yeah, I'd just love to see more of that complication used, across the board,
Same.
but yeah. Alright, well, yeah, let's jump into our episode today. So you just came back from Geneva Watch Days, and this was your first time going, is that right?
Yes, first Geneva Watch Days experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to hear about your experience. I've never been, and honestly, Geneva Watch Days really only got on my radar. I don't know how long it's been around, but I would say in like the last like 2 years for me.
Yeah,
I feel like it's become a bigger deal.
it's only like 4 years old. I think
Okay.
if I remember correctly, it started in 2020, like the year of the pandemic, and like coming off that first like pandemic summer, it was a move to kind of get um some watch brands and collectors like back into Geneva. To like Geneva's a watch crazy city. Obviously there's so many
Yeah.
brands that are based there. Obviously there's a lot of wealth in Geneva, so it's just like a hub for you know not just high end luxury watches, but it's sort of like the world capital of the watch industry, if
Yeah.
you will. And
Where does
so
it take place? It's not
so it's sort of spread out, like
okay.
the Beau Rivage, which is a place we're both familiar with from our Watches and Wonders coverage, is sort of like the main hub. But basically, all of the there's a bunch of hotels, along the southern bank of like Geneva there that are used by these brands. They rent out suites and it's sort of it's a lot of hotel suites. You're just like bouncing around from hotel to hotel, and from
Yeah.
boutique to boutique also, to take meetings. Um, it's a very very different vibe from Watches and Wonders, and that's sort of like the conversation that you have with people when you're there, is you're kind of just always comparing the Watches and Wonders experience to the Geneva Watch Days experience. They're
Yeah.
both obviously great opportunities to see a lot of interesting watches, and brands, release new things at both
Mhm.
events, but there's something a lot more relaxed and
Yeah.
um, uh, I would say like subdued about Geneva Watch Days. Like Watches and Wonders is very intense, and Geneva Watch Days
Mhm.
is um, it's still kind of intense, like to cover it, like to work it, but everyone is like a little bit more relaxed. I think
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you
Well,
dress more
there's
casually. It's just a more easygoing
well, I'm
kind
all
of
for
vibe.
that.
Yeah.
Is there less brands that I'm sure there's less brands that take part cons
Well,
compared to,
I
like
don't know. I think
okay,
probably there are probably more brands actually
very
if you
interesting, okay,
count them all up. Um,
okay. A lot more smaller brands.
yeah, a lot of smaller brands are renting out suites in the Beau Rivage and the Fairmont and other hotels, and there's a handful of brands that kind of like were like founding members, I guess you'd say, of Geneva Watch
Mm,
Days, like so like Breitling, Moser, and a handful of other brands are sort of like the stronghold brands. But like there's just a huge number of brands, and as I had the experience kind of walking around Geneva when I was there, of like seeing people with like those totes, that you get like the free swag in after
yeah.
after a meeting, of brands that like I had no idea were exhibiting at Geneva Watch Days.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I think there's a lot to cover, like more than anyone could possibly cover alone. And
Yeah.
there's a ton of brands there for sure.
That's cool, and it's a completely different experience also just because you're alone, you're by yourself
Yeah, that was
compared
interesting.
to
Yeah.
a team of, 4 or 5 that we're usually all out there, we're all either writing or shooting and editing at the same time, and you're just going solo. And so I'm sure is it a lot more pressure, do you feel like, because you are by yourself? Or is that relaxed vibe, does it play into that part of just kind of taking things a little more slowly?
I sort of realized, well, when I got there and what the working situation was going to be like for me.
Yeah.
I sort of realized like I'm not going to be able to cover this like I would cover Watches and Wonders.
Yeah.
There's no press lounge, to
Okay.
like bang
Yeah.
out an article in the middle of the day. Like you're going from like meeting to meeting. Maybe you have like a 15 or 30-minute break in between meetings, and maybe you can like find somewhere to sit
Spot.
in the Beau
Yeah.
Rivage or somewhere else to like check your email or whatever. But it's not a Watches and Wonders situation where there's like a dedicated area for press, because it's still really primarily like a B2B, a business to business
Yeah.
sort of like environment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't they're friendly to press, I would say, but it doesn't like cater to press in the same way that Watches and Wonders does, even though, and this is something we talked about, several months ago, like they're doing less of that catering to press than they have in the
Yeah.
past. But it's a very different type of experience to cover it from my perspective. Like, as we
Yeah.
record, it's Tuesday. And I'm planning on doing most of the Geneva Watch Days coverage this week and next week to
Mhm.
kind of sort of like a recap of the show.
Yeah.
Whereas with Watches and Wonders, we sort of try to cover it in real time
Yeah.
as much as
Yeah.
possible.
Well, and I feel like from a perspective of, taking myself out of Worn and Wound for a second, as a collector, it doesn't have this like it doesn't have the same effect on social. I mean, there were certainly releases that caused a lot of buzz that we'll talk about here shortly, but overall, it kind of fizzled out fairly quickly. I thought, at least on the social media side, and whereas with Watches and Wonders, it's well, and you have some of the bigger brands that I guess, the masses kind of care about a little bit
Mhm.
more, is like the Rolexes and the Tudors of the world. But yeah, I would say like it was a little bit quieter on that end. But I do want to give props to you, Kazan, and the editorial team, because I felt like we did cover a lot
Yeah.
over last week, and I know you were out there by yourself, so yeah, you and your team did a great job at covering the show.
Yeah, thanks. We certainly did did the best we could. There are a handful of. It's also a little bit different from Watches and Wonders because we don't necessarily know about, like, I feel like I didn't get as many like press releases ahead of time as I would in
Oh
front of
yeah,
Watches and Wonders.
makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
there were meetings I went into where like I did not know what I was going to be seeing, and I didn't know if I was going to be seeing something that I could talk about. And indeed, just
Yeah.
kind of like going through, after the show, I was kind of like figuring out like, okay, so what am I going to actually write about? And there are a lot of meetings I took where I saw stuff I can't write about yet because it's under embargo for like, another
Yeah.
week or another month or like later in the year or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, very different from the press side, but certainly shout out to to our contributors who helped out with with coverage. They were a huge help and allowed me to kind of like relax a bit and focus
Mhm.
on the meetings and seeing the watches and making some good connections over there, which I think is
Yeah.
really the value of the show, is sort of like
Yeah.
having these like in-person experiences with brands and
Yeah.
learning about new brands in particular for me
Mhm.
was a valuable experience.
Yeah. I'm very curious, like, in the grand scheme of things, because it to me, it feels like a little bit of like a mini Watches and Wonders, and I don't wanna downplay Geneva Watch Days at all, but it's in the same location, it's a lot of the same brands, a lot of the same brands that we did see, whether it was at, Palexpo or meetings that we took separately. Do you feel like a show like this is currently needed with as big as Watches and Wonders has gotten?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. The real key difference between like the brand experiences that you have between Watches
Mhm.
and Wonders and Geneva Watch Days is, with Geneva Watch Days, it's basically like all independence. Like if you
Yeah,
care about independent watchmaking and independent brands, Geneva Watch Days is really kind of like the center
the
of the
place to be.
universe.
Yeah.
And Watches and Wonders, the coverage focuses on like huge brands that are part of
Mhm.
giant luxury conglomerates. And we like a lot of those brands, and they make watches that we certainly feel are worth covering. But like this feels Geneva Watch Days feels more like enthusiast focused. It's more like
Yeah.
watch nerd focused in a way. I mean, I prefer to go to both shows, honestly,
Yeah.
but I think if like I had a
Yeah.
choice, like I'd probably choose
Mhm.
to go to Geneva Watch Days. I think
Yeah.
there's
Interesting
more
watches,
watches
yeah.
that like I'm personally interested in and brands that I'm like
Yeah.
personally curious about that you can learn about and spend time with at Geneva Watch Days than Watches and
Yeah.
Wonders. And you just have like better
Totally.
access,
Mhm.
at Geneva Watch Days too, because it is um, it's smaller in scale. It's held in
Yeah.
hotel suites and not in a giant convention hall with an airport style security line. It's
Yeah.
just a lot kind of easier to navigate in that way too.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that, some of these brands I know that we visited back in, where we there in March? I can't even remember now
Yeah,
when we were
March,
in Geneva.
April, yeah,
Yeah.
when the snow was still on the ground in some places, yeah, that time of
Yeah.
year.
Well, I feel like, with Watches and Wonders, some of these smaller brands, like you could say like a Moser or, Louis Girard or something, they release stuff, but it often gets overshadowed because of, like you mentioned, those bigger brands
Mhm,
that are putting releases out during that week, and, yeah, this is a good opportunity, it seems, for those brands to kinda shine a little bit more, and it definitely feels like they have. I mean,
for sure.
granted, we still had some bigger brands coming out with stuff this week, but I think a lot of the buzz was around some of the smaller brands, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure, and Moser's the perfect example. Moser,
Yeah.
obviously, they're part of Watches and Wonders, and,
Mhm.
they released good stuff at Watches and Wonders this year, but it wasn't covered nearly as extensively as big releases from Rolex and
Yeah.
Tudor and Patek and, any number of other, like big, more mass market brands.
Yeah.
At Geneva Watch Days, Moser had arguably like kind of like the buzziest
Yeah.
release
I think so.
of the entire show, and it was a release that they made in partnership with a brand that is really like directly in our wheelhouse at
Yeah.
Moser Studio Underdog. So that was like truly one of the most exciting
Yeah. Well,
things.
let's chat about some of those watches as we kinda lean into that. What did you think about that collaboration?
I loved it. I thought
Did you get to see it?
I
You did get to see it,
Yep, I
right?
saw, yeah, so one that Moser was actually one of my first meetings at Geneva Watch
Oh, cool.
Days, and, I saw both of the pieces, in person and, tried them on and, took a close look at them, and they're great. So this is the Moser Studio Underdog, um, I think they call it the Passion Project,
Mhm.
collaboration, and the
Yeah.
idea it's sort of, like, inspired by, like, a passion fruit colorway, lots of, like,
Mhm.
golds and purples,
Yeah.
and, yeah, I'm a big fan of both of these brands, and it really kind of shows you where there's this like overlap between this like very high end luxury brand and a much more approachable micro brand, independent brand, that both are just kind of like all about having fun and being whimsical and being
Yeah.
adventurous and trying new things. And I really enjoyed the release in both of the watches. They came out great. I was very surprised to see because you're kind of in a bubble, when you're at
Mhm.
one of these shows. You've experienced
Yeah.
this at Watches and Wonders. Like you don't necessarily get like the full like impact of like the conversation that's happening on like Instagram and whatever.
Yeah.
And like people like were really like out to get
Yeah.
particularly Richard at
Yeah.
Studio Underdog for this release, which I
Yeah.
thought was really unfair and unfortunate. And I'm actually going to
Yeah.
write about that
Oh, interesting.
later in the week or next week. Um, so like being in the bubble of Geneva Watches, I think everyone really responded positively to these, and some people were just not happy back home with this release, which
I'd say
was
a lot of people.
there's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
there. I
Yeah, there
think for
is,
sure.
certainly. I thought it was a really cool collaboration. I think I'd like to see these higher end independents working with more of the micro brands. I think
Mhm.
that's awesome. I think, like, we can work together and, I know it does bum out a lot of Studio Underdog, collectors and fans because they would love to get their hands on a collaboration with a Moser, but seeing this watch and again, I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen enough Mosers at this point to know that it's worth every penny, and these watches are, like, crazy, crazy high end, and, I'm really excited to see it. I hope that maybe it shows up at Wind Up in in the fall. Maybe we can see it in person and have people stop by Studio Underdog and look at it, but the texture just looks amazing on it and on both models, and I love the colorway, and I think the project is fun, and, yeah, I'd love to see more brands working together, and, yeah, maybe making an option that's a little bit more affordable would be great, but, maybe that's in the pipeline, who
I
knows?
mean, Studio Underdog already makes a lot of affordable watches. Like
Yeah,
my argument would
yeah,
be like, in some ways every Studio Underdog watch is kind of similar to like these
Is
Moser
that yeah.
watches,
Yeah.
sort of like spiritually, like they're sort of
Mhm.
like doing something in the same vein.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't say like Moser on the dial, like they're kind of like these like
Yeah.
kindred spirit brands. And so like
Totally.
I think like if you own a Studio Underdog, maybe it kind of like reframes how you think about the brand. Like it's
Mhm.
now like related to Moser in a way, like literally that it wasn't before. And I think that's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
Moser will be at Watch Time, New York,
Yeah.
and Richard and Studio Underdog will be at
So just,
Wind Up.
yeah.
So I think there's a possibility you you might be able to see, both of the watches in the collaboration
Yeah.
on Wind Up weekend. So
I have to give a shout out to both Richard and Edward that, their marketing for this, they, like, almost made, like, a movie poster.
yeah,
Well, first of all, they teased it very well. They each had sort of this recipe they were doing, drink recipes, and, yeah, they ended up doing, like, a movie poster that I thought and it was so good. Whoever shot it and came up with that idea, it was perfect.
yeah, no, it was really fun. I think they nailed every aspect of the release. It's just like it's something for like the real like like the true like a very niche
Yeah,
audience of enthusiasts, I think. Um,
totally.
but yeah, I thought it was really fun. The watches I thought looked great. Let's talk about the new addition to the Naus Automatic family. Naus Automatic is an early and favorite selection among Sternglass watch wearers, so the Pro Automatic is both familiar and a newcomer. The watch is now 9 mm tall, down from 12 mm, and comes with the higher quality Miyota 9015 movement gilt version. Head to sternglass.com to see the various offerings of dial, strap, and dual tone luminova across the anthracite or alabaster offerings. The first 400 Naus Pro Automatic in alabaster and 300 in anthracite with a gold Miyota 9015 gilt version. The second series will feature the same movement in the silver color. The Naus Pro Automatic is available now and starts at $799 US in the Sternglass shop. Sternglass.com.
Well, let's talk about other things. Was there something that just, like, really surprised you at the show?
Something that really surprised me. So, I got to see a lot of Mings. I
Yeah.
think I probably spent more time looking at Mings
Oh, no way.
this week than or last week than at any time before. So their new piece, the series 3 chronograph, I think, the solid gold watch with the just like absolutely crazy dial with like hundreds of like little pockets of loom, etched into glass is just like an absolutely wild thing. I was just very, very
Yeah.
impressed with that. And Ming was kind enough to kind of like bring out a bunch of other pieces. He showed me the bluefin diver,
Oh, nice.
which came out or was announced a short time ago. That watch is absolutely great. I immediately had some regrets about not buying one. Um, just a lot of really cool stuff from Ming. Um, the new Resonance Type 5 with the full loom dial was
Mm,
really, really
yeah.
great. Had a great meeting with them. Was a huge fan of that. I'm trying to think. Oh, so always one of the coolest meetings, and this stretches back to Watches and Wonders as well, is with MB&F. So MB&F this
Yeah.
year, um, their sister brand, the Mad Editions project. They have a new kind of like improved version of the Mad One. They're calling it the Mad One S. So I got
Yeah.
to try that on, and it wears so well. It's
I
a
know, it looks
totally
so good.
different different experience than the Mad One. It wears like a normal watch, which I think is kind of like how I would that's just how I would describe it. It's like the Mad One, but
Yeah.
like wearable. Because the original Mad One is just kind of like comically like tall and
Yeah, it is very tall.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they also were focusing on clocks this year in
Oh.
their suite at the Beau Rivage. They have a new clock with La Pie, which is like a Zeppelin kind of theme that has all these propellers, and it chimes, and it's huge.
Mm.
I took some photos of that, and I have a video of it too, of it kind of like in action that I can we can put in the show notes. But that was just one of those like insanely cool things that you'll probably only see like at an event like this. It was pretty special.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking through some of our articles from last week just to, just to refresh my mind on all the stuff that came out. But yeah, that was definitely a standout, and I thought that new Mad one just it just looks so nice, and, like, I think for me that, like, not that I've ever actively, like, tried to get one of these watches, but, like, the thickness, I'm just like, "It's gonna get banged on, like, a
Mhm.
doorknob or something." It's just it does stand up, and I've seen a lot of people wearing them, and they're so cool, but, yeah, this would definitely be, like, much more up my alley and, like, something I'd actually try to, attain myself. They look great, and I like the colorways too. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, they did a great job with it.
What did you think of, the Oris, the Diver 65? Did you get to see that in person?
Yeah, so they have the new, Diver 65 they made in collaboration with I'm forgetting the name of
It's
the
like LFP?
yeah, it's very nice. It's kind of fun. It has a, a custom, like
Yeah.
typeface on it. It's good, it's like Oris does a lot of these, kind of like fun collaborations with, with their partners, and, that watch exists for a good cause.
Mhm.
And it's a nice colorway. The Diver 65 is an easy watch to like. It's just always been
Yeah.
sort of like super wearable. They also had the new Aquas chronograph,
Yeah.
which is the you kind of like the first instance of their chronograph in the Aquas line with the new sort of like more refined Aquas case, which I'm a big fan of. This one's I thought it wore a little bit big. It was kind of kind of a little bit too chunky for my personal taste, but the dial looks great. I thought like the blue dial was awesome.
Yeah. I actually did get to see that during Watches and
Yeah.
Wonders, but I I was, like, shooting, I don't know, probably 30 Orises. There were so many, and I honestly just kinda forgot about it.
Hmm.
I should probably have a photo of it somewhere in my I don't know, one of these hard drives around the house, but yeah, I'm glad to see that came out. It looks really nice, and, I'm excited to see it again, and again, hopefully at, Wind Up New York, or if not, but maybe before then, we'll get a sample in the office or something we can play with, but, yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else that, I really liked was I think it was the Urwerk. I
Yes.
don't even know, I can't it's like all letters and numbers, but
It's the
it
Urwerk EMC,
yeah.
with it's a special limited edition version of the EMC, which, I think is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, and this
Yeah.
one is inspired by the SR-71 Blackbird, which is a very famous, famous, like, plane, a military spy plane, and it's made from, like, a piece of a crashed Blackbird,
Oh, wow.
the crank specifically. So this watch works by, it's very complicated. It's a really crazy idea. We'll put a link to the story in the show notes, but basically it tells you how accurate your mechanical watch is running at any given time, like on demand.
That's
You press a
crazy.
button and it tells you like what the beat error is essentially. And
So it's like a robot.
yeah, it's like a little it has like literally a little computer like built into the watch, and you charge that computer by turning this crank.
That's crazy.
And it's regulated by a like a I believe a quartz oscillator, a very very high frequency quartz oscillator.
Yeah,
It's just an incredibly cool thing.
it's very awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like it was literally taken out of, like, a plane
Yep.
and,
Yep.
a dash and put on your wrist.
Yep.
It's really cool looking.
In the Urwerk meeting, they bring the watch out, and they also have like a piece of the SR-71 Blackbird, like that they
Oh,
like,
that's
which is
cool.
like this crazy thing. Like if you have any sort of like interest in aviation, it's just like to hold that in your hand,
Yeah,
it's just wild. So
that's awesome. And then I will say that, like, something that I thought kind of got overlooked during a lot of the releases was, some watches from Alpina, the Heritage
mhm.
automatics. I don't know if you got to see these, but they look really, really nice
Yeah.
and kind of unlike anything I've seen really Alpina do.
Yep, the Heritage Automatics look great. We saw those. Kyle and I saw those, and James, also in Las Vegas earlier this year,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
at Couture, the other show
Yeah.
that we went to earlier this summer. So that was the first time I gotten to see them, and they had the final versions in Switzerland at Geneva Watch Days, and they were yeah, they're very very nice. So I think those will be incredibly popular for sure. They also had
Totally.
the new Alpiner skeleton sports
Oh,
watches, which are
cool.
great. Um, yeah, good, really good showing from Alpina and Frederick Constant. as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I'm excited to, yeah, to get these in the office, and I'm sure someone will do a hands-on with one of them, and the price point's really great too.
Yeah.
I mean, under 2K, they just look so classic, and I love the font on the watches too, it looks really great. Something that I really liked, because 'cause I'm just such a huge fan, is the Konstantin Chaikin, the Thin King.
Yeah.
It's li Did you get to see this?
I didn't get to see it,
Oh, no.
because, I mean, it's impossible to see every,
Yeah, it's hard.
you can't take every meeting, so I didn't, schedule something with Konstantin Chaikin, but, yeah, that was another very buzzed about, watch at the show, and an interesting anecdote was, the watch debuted at like, a press breakfast,
Mm,
kind of, like, on the first day of Watches and Wonders, and the little, like, party favor at the breakfast was like a plastic model
mm,
of the watch. And so I'm sitting there like in the Beau Rivage, that first morning, kind of like waiting for like in between meetings. And another member of the press, Robin from Monochrome, is sitting like, across from me. And I notice he's wearing what looks like the Constantine Chaikin, and it kind of fooled me. And I'm thinking like, is that like how is he wearing this?
yeah,
Like, there must be like, I'm sure there's just one, maybe two prototypes. Like,
yeah.
what this doesn't make any sense. And so like he explained, it's a it's like a fiberglass like model, which is not as
Still, that's pretty
it's still
cool.
pretty cool, and it's like it's not as thin as the actual watch. So
Okay,
um
gotcha.
yeah, pretty cool thing. It's fun that an independent brand, like a true independent brand, like set this thinness record. I
Yeah,
think I was getting kind of bored of like the constant
but
like volleying back and forth of like,
yeah.
thinnest watch ever made. And um at a certain point, like it just doesn't really matter, like it gets, it's like a really
Wait,
cold
I
day in
have
the
to look.
winter, like at a certain point, like
I wanna
it's
say
just like,
1.65 millimeters. Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
it's
that's
it's
crazy.
absolutely insane. But it's like it's cool that he did it in the style of like a Rismon's piece, basically. Like
Yeah,
you can kind of
yeah.
see that, like,
You can see his DNA for
yeah, for
sure
sure. Yeah.
all over it.
It's very cool.
It's so cool. Yeah, I hope I get to see one of these one day. It's pretty awesome. You can see kind of the face and the in the dial of it, but,
Yeah.
and a really cool strap too, just
Yeah. And the
yeah,
strap is like
great.
part of like it adds structure to the case, I think is like,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's not incidental. And like the watch has it doesn't have hands. Like the time is
yeah,
told through like the gears, that are
yeah,
part of the movement anyway, which is kind of like the innovation with this watch. And um, just, it seems like a very simple, elegant solution to me if you're going for like a thinness record.
yeah.
Yeah, really, really
It's
cool
so cool.
piece.
That was definitely one of my favorites from the show.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that, you feel like we've missed that was a call out to you?
So I want to call out the Girard-Perregaux La Esmeralda Tourbillon, which was
Mm,
that was the last meeting I had over this like 3-day period of like wall to wall meetings, and was probably like the single most like beautiful watch that I saw like during the course of the
really?
week.
Wow.
It's a very ornate hand engraved like pink gold case with this like horse motif. I'm not like a horse person, but like it's just like these like just very beautiful like little mini sculptures of these horses like on the on the dial. It's just incredibly well finished. It has a beautiful movement. It's just like it's really just a stunning kind of like take your breath away kind of watch. It costs around $450,000, I
Ooh,
think. And Girard-Perregaux says that they'll make 18 of them on request. So like
on
you
request,
really
wow.
will not ever see one outside of a like an industry event, because they're made to order by like individual clients. So yeah, just an incredibly beautiful, intricate piece that sort of like shows everything that Girard-Perregaux is like good at, like all in
Yeah.
one watch. It was stunning.
Yeah, I actually just pulled up some photos of it, and it is absolutely beautiful. The casework is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. I missed somehow I missed this release altogether, but yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I like horses too, so it's kind of a nice touch
Yeah,
on
if you like horses, this is probably the watch for you. If you
it.
also have 400 grand sitting in the bank. So
Yeah,
yeah,
who needs a house?
yeah.
You just buy a watch. Well, I have to ask because the people want to know how many club sandwiches did you have when you were out there?
I had, I think, like 3 total. I had
That's not
one
bad.
on day 1, like the first day I got there, like the day before
Yeah.
the show. I had one at the Hotel Envy, and then I had 2 at, the Grand Duke pub,
Yeah.
on consecutive days. And,
Awesome.
shout out to the gentleman who approached me. I saw him cross the street and came up to me and said that he loved the Worn and Wound podcast as I was eating
Oh,
a
wow.
sandwich at the Grand Duke pub. So, um,
That is
it was
amazing.
really, really great to be so, warmly received. Like so many brands, and other members of the watch community. Like they listen to the podcast and they know us there. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah. I
You know,
will never forget us recording on, I don't know, this like random park. And it was also the podcast that we all lost it and we were delirious at that point. But yeah, the woman came up to us and was like such a fan
yeah,
and can't believe she bumped into us recording a podcast. And that was so sweet
yeah,
and just so wholesome. And I loved it.
yeah. No, it's great. It makes it kind of like it reminds you, why we do this.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
that was great. Well, cool. And I assume weather was pretty good while you were out there?
Weather was good. It was very hot. So, of
A little
course,
warmer. Yeah.
none of these buildings have like American style air conditioning. So it
Oh,
was kind of a struggle at times, but like I can't
yeah.
really complain about the weather. I mean, it's beautiful, kind of like summer days in Geneva. It was great.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember. I almost wanna say my windows didn't open, but now that I think about it, maybe they did in, at Hotel Envy.
So the
That's, like,
Hotel
kind of a
Envy
must.
is like one of the few, my understanding, one of
AC?
the few hotels that like has like really good like kind of American
Okay.
style air
Yeah.
conditioning. So like my room was like nice and cool the entire
Okay.
time I was
Yeah.
there.
I think
Um,
when we're there earlier, they only run AC, like, during summer
yeah,
months. I know this is probably so boring to people, sorry. But, yeah, I think that well, in case you wanna know, if you're going to Geneva anytime
sure,
soon,
yeah,
Hotel Envy has that AC in the summer.
yeah, yeah. Very nice place to stay. Hotel Envy.
Yeah. Do you feel like is it happening about town during Geneva Watch Days? Like, are there events happening after hours and parties and stuff like it is earlier in the year during, Watches and Wonders? Are there, like, signs everywhere for Geneva Watch Days and
Yeah, I would say that, it kinda takes over the city
yeah.
for a period of time. There are definitely, like, things happening in the evening. I didn't do any of that, because I was, like, I was tired. It was, I had, very long days and not a ton of energy or, yeah. But, if that's the if that you wanna participate in those like, there are definitely opportunities to do that.
Yeah. That's
There were
cool.
dinners and parties and, it's so the other thing that I think is kind of like worth noting about Geneva Watch Days is it's partly underwritten or sponsored by the Canton of Geneva, so it is sort of like
Mm.
literally like a public event, and that's one of the things that makes it distinct from Watches and Wonders. There's like a real public element to
Yeah.
Geneva Watch Days. So like your people are invited to like the Geneva Watch Days tent where
Yeah.
brands kind of like exhibit in a more public facing
Mhm.
way. And there are like symposiums is what they call them, but they're like panel discussions that are happening like throughout the course
Yeah. And the public
of
can
the week.
attend those
Yep,
as well?
yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Yeah, because you can't attend unless you're, going to the public days at Watches and Wonders, so that's nice that those are available to people.
right, and I would say that some people sometimes will ask me, and I'm sure you as well, just like normal watch collectors, like should I go to Watches and Wonders?
Yeah.
And I think like it's fine to go to Watches and Wonders if you have the
Mhm.
means to do it. I think it's it's a cool event, but like Geneva Watch Days is more friendly to the public than
Yeah.
Watches and Wonders. So like that's what
Yeah.
I would like.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it's especially if you're interested in an independent watchmaking, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of really cool indies. It's like it's really kind of like where independent brands can shine.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, maybe next year, I'll join you. I'd love to go and love to take some photographs of these really cool watches that come out.
It would be nice to have some help the next one. I'm not gonna lie. And nice to have some help with photography. I think I was able to take
Yeah.
like maybe
No,
like
dude, you took a lot of great photos. Yeah.
I think I was able to get like 2 good photographs of like any
No,
given
you took
watch.
more than 2.
Well,
Oh,
like
of any given watch,
yeah, I
okay.
can take like a good wrist shot and a good like, like some one other good like, shot.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna say, everything you posted on Instagram was pretty good,
thanks.
so
Yeah.
those were the highlights.
Yeah, there's a lot that didn't get posted, but yeah, it's I think it would be I think you'd dig it for sure. Like there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool things.
And you took the Like It, right? The Q too?
Sure did. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Glad you're getting some use out of it.
Oh,
Yeah, those shots look great.
it's getting some
I
use.
like your, like, candid stuff that you shoot, like, around the city, and I've seen you post the things from your hometown too, and yeah, your photography is definitely, like, stepping up a bit.
Yeah, I'm learning slowly but surely, and I'm enjoying the
Yeah.
process. I can get
That's a
things in
fun camera.
focus for most of
Yeah.
the time. It's
Well, it's a good camera to learn on for sure. Well, cool. Well, I'm glad you had a great time. It sounds like it was awesome, and, yeah, maybe we can get some more team members out there next year with you,
yeah,
so you're not flying
that'd be great.
solo.
I mean, like I said, it's a really cool event. There's a lot of cool stuff to see, and yeah, definitely. I think worthy of getting more members of the team out to Geneva next year for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, folks, for listening. We will put links to the in the show notes of all the watches we talked about and we've covered on Worn and Wound. And you can find us at www.wornandwound.com, and you can listen to the podcast. Just type in Worn and Wound on your podcast streaming platform. And until next time, we'll see you later.